The shocking truth about a little girl's gift to a lonely CEO on his 50th birthday. In the tight-lipped world of corporate giants, where smiles are as rare as sunlight peeking through heavy clouds, a single moment changed everything. On the eve of his 50th birthday, Thomas Albright, the notoriously solitary CEO of tech titan Albright Innovations, stood atop his gleaming penthouse terrace, overlooking a city buzzing with life. For years, he had been a shadow among the living, driven by ambition but crippled by an unshakable loneliness. Then came the knock at his door, a small girl with wide, innocent eyes and a heartwarming smile. This wasn't just any girl. Rumors swirled around the dreams she had, tales spoken in hushed tones. Some said she could predict the future, others believed she simply saw the truth hidden from everyone else. As she stood there on that chilly night, clutching a polka-dotted package tightly, something in the air shifted. It was a moment pregnant with possibility, an intersection of magic and reality. When he opened the gift, a simple painting by the girl, the entire room felt charged with electricity. The colors stretched and swirled, forming a vibrant landscape that somehow whispered secrets only Thomas could grasp. An explosion of color that seemed to mirror the chaos inside his own heart, weaving hope and melancholy into a fabric he had long thought impossible. His eyes widened in shock, not just at the beauty of the artwork but at a hidden inscription. It read, "When the shadows loom, follow the light." Those words cut deeper than a knife, leaving a tightness in his chest he couldn't shake. Outside, the city continued its rhythm, cabs honking, the distant sirens screaming, laughter floating through the air, all muffled against the weight of Thomas's introspection. What happened next was unthinkable. Just as he grappled with the weight of the message, the lights in his penthouse flickered violently. The air grew heavy, tension wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket. Was this a trick of the light? His breath quickened, and he stumbled back, his heart racing. It felt as if the universe conspired to reveal something extraordinary, hidden just beneath the surface of his mundane existence. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the light steadied, Thomas glanced back at the girl, but she was gone, vanished into the shadows like the last sliver of daylight. The painting, still resting heavily in his hands, felt alive, pulsing with energy. The inscription burned in his mind, echoing louder than any boardroom meeting he had ever attended. His thoughts churned with desperation. Was this just a birthday wish from an innocent child, or was something darker, a prophecy unraveling before him? And as his world began tilting dangerously toward chaos, the weight of the girl's gift loomed larger than anything he had ever faced. Questions raced through his mind. What had she seen? And why did she choose him? The air crackled with anticipation, holding secrets he was not yet ready to uncover. The cityscape shimmered below, but Thomas felt none of its vibrancy. His heart pounded, thrumming in his chest like a desperate drum. What did those words mean? When the shadows loom, follow the light. He could almost feel the weight of the girl's gaze on him, like a lingering memory that begged to be understood. But what could he make of this? A painting gifted by a child, swirling colors now taunting him with their vividness. He turned the canvas over, hoping for a clue, but the back was blank, a void that only deepened the mystery. Just as a greater darkness began to swell in his gut, a sudden blast of wind rattled the glass doors leading to the terrace. His instincts kicked in, pushing him forward, but he stopped short. The shadows around him seemed to flicker, dance, disappear into corners, while others expanded ever closer. Dread knotted in his stomach as his eyes darted around the penthouse. It felt smaller, the air thickening with an invisible tension. For the first time in years, he felt the urge to run, like prey sensing the predator nearby. He took a deep breath, fighting back the panic. He had always thrived on control, and he wasn't ready to let fear pull him into the void. Drawing on those inner reserves, he forced himself to approach the painting again. He glanced out at the skyline, framed against the dimming blue sky. "Follow the light," he muttered, almost to himself. But where was the light? The city, in its twinkling glory, felt distant, almost irrelevant. Could she have meant something more? Just then, his phone buzzed on the polished marble table, jolting Thomas from his contemplation. He picked it up, expecting a mundane birthday message from a colleague. Instead, it was a notification for an emergency meeting, a mandatory session, scheduled to begin in 10 minutes. His brow furrowed, something felt off. The corporate world was rife with subtlety, but this was different. The insistence of immediacy felt ominous, as though the shadows were coming for him, wrapping tighter around his shoulders. He glanced back at the painting, feeling the pull of the girl's message. If there was something waiting for him at the meeting, a truth lurking in the underbelly of Albright Innovations, wouldn't he be able to face it alone? Suddenly aware of how skittish he had become, he straightened his tie and checked his reflection in the mirror. He looked composed enough, but the inner storm continued to brew. As he stepped out of his penthouse, the elevator ride down felt like an eternity. Each floor ticked by with agonizing slowness, the number panel glowing like dark omens. When the doors slid open to the lobby, Thomas found the room seemingly empty but for a few strategically placed employees who had all frozen, expressions locked in fear. "Mr. Albright." One of them gasped, rushing forward. "You need to see this. The board just received a threatening email. It involves you." His pulse quickened. "Threatens?" In that moment, it felt like everything, a cruel twist of fate, was about to topple the very edifice of his carefully constructed world. "What do you mean?" Thomas's voice came out sharper than he intended. "Just come with me," the employee urged, a tremor evident in her voice. The gravity of the moment pressed down on him as he followed her into the conference room. Shadows flickered at the edge of his vision, whispering doubts. What did the girl know that he didn't? The answer felt tantalizingly out of reach, hovering like a wisp of smoke, just waiting to combust. But as he stepped across the threshold, he understood things were about to change forever. What awaited him in that room could upend his entire life and everything he thought he knew. Would he find the light, or would the shadows consume him whole? The weight of that question settled heavily on his mind as he prepared to face whatever lay ahead. As Thomas entered the conference room, the silence hit him like a slap. The only sound was the low hum of the overhead lights, struggling against the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to sink deeper with each step he took. The long rectangular table stood empty, save for a cluster of nervous board members gathered at one end, their faces pale and grave. He felt their eyes on him, their collective breath held, as if he'd been summoned into a courtroom rather than a corporate meeting. "Have a seat, Thomas," David, the head of the board, gestured, his voice barely breaking through the thick tension. The unease in the room wrapped around Thomas like a shroud, dragging him down with each heartbeat that he looked around, searching for a lifeline, but everyone's faces twisted with unspoken dread. "What is going on?" he asked, forcing the words through a throat tight with trepidation. "Last night, we received an anonymous email," David began, running a hand through his thinning hair, a gesture of stress that Thomas found oddly unsettling. "It was threatening and mentioned specific decisions you've made." A chill crept up Thomas's spine. "Decisions? What kind?" Another board member, Julie, interjected. "It listed the recent layoffs, the policies you pushed through. It accused you of recklessness, of prioritizing profits over people." "They aren't just accusations," David cut in, his brow furrowed. "It also contained details that only someone close might know." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle like smoke in the air. Thomas felt his heart plummet. Who could know? Was someone inside Albright Innovations? The walls felt as if they were closing in, shadows closing around him again, threatening to swallow everything. This must be a mistake. Have we traced the source? He didn't like the panic creeping into his voice. "We're working on it," Eric, the chief technical officer, replied, his eyes flickering between the screen and Thomas. But the real threat isn't just the email. It's that this could blow up in the press. The shareholders enough already. Thomas snapped, each word a foreign entity in his mouth. He needed to maintain control. What do you want from me? The board feels you need to step back, David said, his voice steady but eyes reflecting the storm that raged in the room. Take a leave of absence until we can sort this out. For a moment, Thomas couldn't process the ultimatum. Aversion twisted into fury at the thought of running away from the chaos. You can't be serious. This is my company. I built this. We're trying to protect you and the company, Julie countered, her voice softer but edged with urgency. Please. We cannot risk crashing under public scrutiny. There are calls for an investigation. Thomas felt lightheaded. An investigation? Based on threats? It sounded absurd, yet the shadows danced closer, confirming his worst fears. He thought again of the girl's painting, the words haunting him now more than before. He gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. These claims are baseless. Someone is trying to undermine me. The room fell silent, filled with the pulse of his heartbeat. That emptiness rang louder than the tension. It felt like a slap, a reminder of vulnerability. They exchanged glances, each filled with uncertainty. If you want to save your position, you have to act like a leader, David urged. But be careful, Thomas, Julie added, her gaze sympathetic. Don't follow the shadows without the light. Something in her tone snapped his awareness. What do you know? He demanded, feeling the ground shift beneath him. He struggled to maintain the facade but sensed a truth hovering over them all, just out of reach. Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered. The hum of the room shifted into an electric tension, and all their heads jerked towards the door, which swung open. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, a young girl, no older than 12, looking directly at him. Thomas's breath caught. The resemblance was uncanny. But how? Why was she here? As the murmurs began to rise among the board members, his mind raced. The light beckoned, yet the shadows loomed heavy behind her. What secrets did she carry? As she stepped forward, everything fell silent, and Thomas understood this was just the beginning. The truth was looming closer, and it was dressed in the form of a child. What was she about to reveal? Her footsteps echoed softly against the polished floor, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in Thomas's mind. As she approached, the air shifted, thickening with expectation. The board members leaned in, their expressions a mix of disbelief and curiosity, whispering among themselves like a congregation unsure of how to interpret a divine message. Who are you? Thomas finally managed to ask, his voice breaking, each word a boulder rolling down a cliff. He wished for answers but dreaded the implications of his questions. I came to talk to you, she said, her small voice steady and clear, standing out against the white noise suffocating the room. Her dark eyes, innocent yet filled with wisdom, locked onto his. I have something important to say. Something important? What could you possibly know? His incredulity slipped through his carefully maintained facade. The girl seemed too young to carry any weight, and yet here she was, shattering preconceptions. I know about the email, she replied, stepping closer, her childish bravado betraying an unsettling confidence. I know it wasn't random. Someone wants you to fail. Gasps erupted around the table. The board members exchanged glances, each face reflecting disbelief, denial, and raw panic, like flickering shadows grappling for the truth. Thomas felt his stomach twist. Could this little girl have insight into the depths of betrayal he had been grappling with? Where did you hear this? He demanded, feeling an urgent need to grasp the reins of the situation. He needed to corner this mystery, to understand the web being spun around him. I saw it. In a dream, she said, her confidence unwavering. And then it came back when I painted. She brandished a crumpled piece of paper, the corners worn and stained. She handed it to him, his hands trembled as he took the drawing. It was a chaotic swirl of colors that shouldn't make sense, but they did. Figures danced across the page, a confrontation between a man and shadowy figures, looming dark and monstrous. And there, in one corner, was a silhouette resembling him, angry and small against the overbearing shadows. It was a visual of his fears, laid bare before his eyes. "Listen to me," she urged, squeezing her small hands into fists, overwhelming resolve on her youthful face. "You need to find who sent that email. They are hiding among the people you trust." A chill washed over him, the implications more chilling than the dark figure in the drawing. "You're saying I have a traitor among us?" His voice echoed louder than intended, and the board members leaned back, openly questioning what they had stumbled into. "I don't know who it is, but they want you gone. You can't let them win," she pressed, her eyes widening, imploring him to believe her. Thomas felt the weight of her words settle like lead into his chest. His company was teetering on the brink, and here stood a child wielding knowledge that felt almost prophetic, and then a flicker of commotion from the back of the room yanked his attention. One of the board members, Eric, had shot to his feet, knocking his chair back. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, voice shaking. "We should call security. She's just a child." But Thomas couldn't dismiss her that easily. There was a presence about her, an energy that both thrilled and terrified him. The truth felt within reach, yet the shadows still clung tightly to every corner. "What happens if I don't?" he found himself asking, the question tasting bitter on his tongue. He knew there was a danger in ignoring the warnings, but what if she was simply lost in her imagination? "Then the darkness will swallow you whole," she whispered, voice barely above a sigh, casting the room into a heavy silence once again. "And you won't be able to save anyone, especially yourself." The gravity of her words hung heavily in the air. Thomas's mind raced. He felt the walls close in again, this time underscored by a pounding anticipation. There was no turning back. As he stared into her earnest eyes, he knew he needed to push through the shadows. The meeting had unleashed chaos all around him, and now the cards were being dealt by a child's hand. How deep did this betrayal run? Who could he really trust? Before he could ask another question, the lights flickered again, sending everyone into a frenzy. A loud crash echoed from the hallway, shattering the silence, and he instinctively felt himself drawn toward the door. "Stay here," he commanded, his hands raised, unsure of what dread lay just beyond the threshold, but as the crowd began to murmur amongst themselves, the girl stepped forward, gripping his arm tightly, her small frame trembling with urgency. "You need to find out now, Thomas," she urged. "Time is running out. Don't let the darkness take you." The foreboding pulse of uncertainty filled the room. What threat loomed outside? What chaos awaited him just beyond the truth? Thomas felt adrenaline rush through him, drowning out the voices of the board. It was time to confront the pain, the betrayal, the shadows. But could he handle the truth that lay ahead? It was a question that had no easy answer. He took a deep breath, ready to face what awaited him, but was he prepared for the revelations that were about to shake his very foundation? Before he could gather his thoughts, Thomas was overwhelmed by the shattering sound once again, another crash reverberating through the hallway. His heart raced as a shower of panic swept through the board members. Fear contorted their faces, whispers escalating into frantic discussions. What was that? A voice cried out, loud with dread. Maybe it's just a prank, another offered, but no one sounded convinced. Thomas brushed past the trembling advisors, determined to open the door despite the uncertainty that rolled through him like thunder. "Thomas, wait!" The girl called after him, her small voice piercing the swell of chaos. Ignoring her plea, he flung the door open, stepping into the dimly lit corridor, where flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows on the polished floor. It was quiet there, the kind of silence that seeped into your bones. No sign of disturbance. No intruders. Just a haunting stillness that sent chills darting down his spine, but the girl's warning raced in his mind, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The hallway stretched out before him like an abyss, each corner potentially hiding his betrayer. "Stay close," he ordered, glancing back to where the girl stood at the threshold, fear in her eyes, daring to ignore the tremble in his own. A knot tightened in his stomach, a primal fear that urged him to retreat. "Please, you shouldn't be out here," she called again, her panic palpable. Just then, something shifted in the shadows, a fleeting figure, too quick to catch. A hollow ache lodged itself in Thomas's chest, urgency guiding him forward. "Did you see that?" he breathed, his voice nearly lost in the thick air. "No. But something is wrong." Her words hung in the air like smoke, thin yet suffocating. Then, from the darkness ahead, a sinister chuckle echoed, deep and unsettling, sending goosebumps crawling over his skin. "Fancy a little detective work, Thomas?" The voice taunted, oozing malice. It had an uncanny familiarity that twisted his insides, a voice that stirred memories he desperately hoped to banish. "Who is there?" Thomas demanded, stepping into the shadow. The dimness seemed alive, the air charged with alertness. The girl hesitated at his side, eyeing the pouring darkness, visibly shaken. 4 figures materialized slowly, revealing themselves from the depths, shrouded in uncertainty. Their faces were half hidden, shadows masking their true intentions. The unmistakable glint of recognition flickered to life for just a moment. Thomas felt his heart sink. It was one of his trusted board members, Laura, a colleague he trusted implicitly. "What is going on?" he asked, his voice strained, the group now surrounding him like vultures over their prey. "Just having a little chat, Thomas," Laura replied, her smile eerie and unconvincing. "A chat about your little predicament. It seems you have unwittingly invited quite the chaos into your life." "What chaos?" His voice rose, laced with desperation. The girl beside him trembled, clutching her crumpled drawing as if it were a lifeline. Laura stepped closer, her gaze piercing, like daggers glinting in the dim light. "Let's just say you've dug up more than you realize. Some secrets are best left untouched." "I don't have time for this," Thomas shot back. "I need to find out who is betraying me." "Indeed you do," she replied, her tone sinister, eyes alight with a twisted glee. "But be careful what you wish for. Sometimes the truth is more than you can handle." A sharp gasp escaped the girl as she looked up at Thomas, fear etched on her face. "They're lying, Thomas. You can't trust her." But before he could react, the figures lunged forward, forcing him back into the corridor. Thomas felt the world turning upside down as he grappled with the overwhelming realization that danger was no longer just an email. As the shadows advanced, the dim light began to fade, his heartbeat drumming in his ears. His trust had become a weapon pointed towards him, and the chilling laughter echoed behind him, trailing like a dark cloud. What awaited him was a confrontation with the truth. But first, he had to escape the clutches of deceit that threatened to engulf him completely. Could he unveil the traitor among his ranks before it was too late? Suddenly, the lights flickered one last time, plunging them into darkness. "Run!" he yelled, adrenaline igniting his body as he pushed forward. Who really wanted to see him fall? And what grim fate awaited them all now? The darkness enveloped Thomas like a heavy blanket, stifling and wild. He bolted down the corridor, the sharp edge of panic gnawing at his insides. Behind him, he could hear the shouts of Laura and the others, their voices strained with a mix of excitement and malice, echoing in chaotic harmonies. The hallway twisted ahead, and Thomas made a snap decision, taking a hard right into a smaller corridor. He hoped to outmaneuver them, to shake off the clutches of treachery that had coiled around him so tightly. His lungs burned as he sprinted, each footfall hitting the ground like a hammer, reverberating in the silence that followed him. The flickering lights overhead created an ominous strobe effect, illuminating worn posters from company events long forgotten, each frame flickering with memories that felt distant and foreign now. All around him, shadows jostled at the edges of his vision, deepening his sense of dread. He could feel it, the chill of invisible eyes watching, assessing, waiting. That he whipped around another corner, crashing into a small office, slamming the door behind him. He leaned against it, chest heaving, trying to catch his breath. The room was cluttered with outdated equipment and musty file boxes, remnants of a time when everything felt uncomplicated and safe. A broken window shivered in the evening breeze, and he could hear the distant sound of sirens, bringing with it the faint promise of escape, but chaos had a relentless grip. He turned quickly, peering through the window. A stop sign glowed red against a fading sunset, pulsing with urgency. Suddenly, a rap on the door jolted him back to reality. Panic gripped him as a voice, lighter yet unmistakably possessive, slithered through the crack. "Thomas," the girl called softly, "let me in. Please." He hesitated. The girl's frightened eyes haunted him. Could she be trusted? The events of the last few minutes flashed through his mind. But then he recalled how desperately she wanted him to be cautious. The sincerity in her voice, despite the chaos, tugged at his heartstrings. "Thomas." She urged again, and the sound of her voice broke through the haze of ambiguity spinning in his head. With a trembling hand, he unlocked the door and swung it open. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, glancing nervously down the corridor as if they might be caught. "I had to find you. They're not what they seem." She burst into the room, casting a wary glance back. "I overheard them. They're planning something, Thomas. It's worse than you think." He felt the ground beneath him shift. "What do you mean?" "We have to move, we don't have much time." "I can show you," she whispered urgently, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. "They're using you as their pawn. There's a file, hidden in the archives. Everything you need to know about the betrayal." "But the others," he started before she cut him off. "Exactly, Thomas. They'll find us if we stay here." His heart raced. The weight of her words pressed down on him like a physical force. What sort of game were they playing? Who could he really trust? "Lead the way," he breathed, steeling himself. They dashed into the dim corridor, hearts pounding in synchrony. As they advanced deeper into the company's bowels, the sounds of shouts grew fainter, but the darkness loomed larger, closing in on them with a menacing whisper. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed, making them stop dead in their tracks. The sound reverberated through the air like a death knell. Thomas exchanged an anxious glance with the girl before bolting further into the shadows. As they ran, the trepidation in his chest morphed into a steely resolve. He needed answers, and he'd risk anything to uncover the truth, but as they neared the archives, Thomas couldn't shake the chilling certainty that they were being hunted. Could they really unearth the secrets buried beneath betrayal and deceit before it was too late? Then, just ahead, he noticed a flicker of movement, a shadow stalking them, poised to strike. Was it friend or foe? Thomas's heart thudded in his chest, a relentless war drum against the encroaching shadows. He caught a glimpse of movement, a figure lurking just beyond the edge of the dim light. Was it one of Laura's accomplices? His thoughts raced as his instincts screamed at him to run. "Did you see that?" he whispered urgently, eyes wide. The girl nodded, fear gripping her features. "Keep going," she urged, and they pressed on, legs pushing faster through the dark. The corridor twisted and turned, each step heavier than the last. They reached an intersection, and Thomas paused, trying to recall the layout he had memorized so long ago. A flicker of fluorescent light illuminated the words, "Archives," on a door to their left, but the right path echoed as if it were singing a siren song, drawing him away from his goal. A cacophony erupted behind them, the sounds of hurried footsteps and voices slicing through the stagnant air. "This way." The girl shook him out of his daze, pulling him toward the archive door. Thomas shoved it open, the aged hinges creaking ominously, like a warning. Shadows loomed large around them, and he quickly lunged inside, locking the door behind them. "Where's this file?" he panted, scanning the cluttered room. Shelves lined with dust-laden boxes felt like towering giants, obscuring their escape. Papers fluttered in a lone breeze from a nearby broken window, whispering secrets of the past. It should be in the back, near the main filing cabinets, she pointed, her voice taut with urgency. He dashed toward the cabinets, yanking drawers open, the metal scraping against with a terrible sound in the suffocating silence. Names, documents, nothing that made sense. He felt panic rising like bile. It's not here. Keep looking. It has to be, she insisted, her anxiety bleeding into his own. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled violently, sending shockwaves of fear coursing through them both. They exchanged a horrified glance, the reality of their situation crashing down. They were as good as trapped. The girl grabbed his arm, her breath hitching. They're coming. Thomas's fingers trembled as he rifled through the dust and chaos, desperation clawing at his mind. His eyes fell on a file tucked behind a line of boxes. A gasp escaped his lips as he yanked it out, the thick papers heavy with truth or lies. He opened it, scanning the pages. Names, dates, transactions all tied to him. Each revelation felt like a punch to the gut. This is everything. Before he could process the implications, the door broke open with a deafening crash. Blinding light flooded into the room, marking them as prey. Get down. He pushed the girl behind him just as a shadow lunged forward. Step away from him. Laura's voice sliced through the chaos, sharp and predatory. The very air thickened with tension at her presence. Thomas's heart raced as the reality of betrayal loomed over him. The girl squeaked in fear, eyes begging for reassurance that didn't exist. What's in that file, Thomas? Laura taunted, stepping closer, a predatory smile crossing her lips. You're not going to let her manipulate you anymore, are you? He clutched the file to his chest, his mind racing with how to escape this treacherous web. But the harsh, shrill laughter that followed made his blood run cold. Suddenly, he knew. They were being hunted, but not just for betrayal, there was something more, a game played at their expense, and the stakes were higher than he could imagine. Run! He shouted, adrenaline coursing through him as he pushed the girl toward a back exit. Would they make it out alive, or would they fall victim to the dark schemes of powerful forces laying in wait? The flicker of those shadows loomed closer, and he realized just how desperate their situation had become. Could he crack the puzzle before it broke them? The moment Thomas yelled, the air shifted with raw urgency. Time stretched unrealistically as they scrambled away from Laura's menacing figure. He felt the oppressive weight of the file pressing against his chest, a relic of danger and discovery that he couldn't afford to drop. Come on! He urged, wrapping a protective arm around the girl as they darted through the narrow passage. His heart hammered louder than his feet on the dust-covered floor. They raced toward the flickering exit sign at the end, a beacon of hope that seemed almost cruel in its faintness. Behind them, voices erupted into chaos, Laura's laughter echoed menacingly, taunting them even as they fled. You won to escape this time, Thomas. The words slithered after them, tightening around his throat like a noose. They burst through a door at the end of the corridor, tumbling into a small storage room dimly lit by a lone bulb. The stark contrast from the hallway sent a shiver down his spine, it felt almost suffocatingly claustrophobic. He shoved the door closed, the sound of metal slamming against the frame barely muffling the tumult outside. Do you think they saw us? The girl whispered, her wide eyes darting around the room. Shadows danced against the walls, stretching ominously. Thomas shook his head, but deep down, he could feel the knot in his stomach tightening. Stay quiet, he instructed, tension pooling in his gut. They crouched behind a stack of boxes, hearts pounding in synchrony. He could hear faint footsteps, the soft scrape of shoes on concrete, and the murmur of voices beyond the door. He pressed his palm to his mouth, urging silence. I was right there here. A voice floated through, unmistakably Laura's, filled with venomous glee. Search every inch. He has the file. We can't let him get away. The girl trembled beside him, her fear palpable, and he wished he could offer her something more than desperate silence. He leaned in closer, pressing a hand on her shoulder. We need to think, he whispered, smothering panic as best he could. Thomas's eyes flicked to the box next to them, sensing its potential like a low-hanging fruit. If we can create a diversion, he started, his mind racing through possibilities. He could knock the boxes over, make a mess loud enough to divert attention, but it was risky. Their hesitation was met with a thundering crash nearby that made them jump. They weren't alone anymore. "Where are you hiding?" Laura's voice reverberated through the room, a wicked crescendo of anticipation. "Do you really think you can escape the truth?" Before Thomas could react, the door swung open violently, forcing him back into the shadows. Laura stood framed in the doorway, searching for movement. He could see the cold glint of determination in her eyes, calculating and predatory. A surge of panic went through him. He needed to act fast. "Now!" he whispered, giving the girl a gentle nudge. He reached for the nearest stack of boxes, gripping tightly, ready to topple them. With a swift shove, the boxes tumbled, crashing to the floor with a thunderous roar. Dust exploded into the air as chaos erupted. "Over there!" Laura shouted as Thomas darted to the side, pulling the girl along just in time to evade the grasp of those hunting them. But then, in the mayhem, the girl's arms slipped from his grip. He spun around, just in time to see her being pulled back into the shadows by a pair of gloved hands. "Thomas!" she cried, panic mixing with his own growing dread. He lunged forward, heart racing, his instincts pushing him to save her. But the darkness swallowed them whole, and Laura's laughter echoed, a sinister reminder that the hunt was far from over. Now, he was faced with a horrifying choice. Dive back to save her or flee with the file, his only weapon against the insidious game they played. The stakes had never been higher. What would he risk to keep her safe? And as the shadows closed in, the chilling thought gnawed at him, what if it was already too late? Thomas froze, the choice twisting in his gut like a knife. The file felt heavier now, its secrets pressing against his chest like a lead weight. He could hear the muffled cries of the girl, her voice laced with fear, reaching out to him amidst the chaos. "Stay back." Laura's voice sliced through the air, laced with a cruel satisfaction. "You can't have her, Thomas. You should have thought twice." In that moment, the world narrowed down to just him and the girl. The shadowy figures closing in felt like they were moving in slow motion, a nightmare unfolding in real time. The girl needed him. He needed to save her. Yet the file, the truth it held, was the only thing that might end this outright war churning in the underbelly of their lives. "Let her go," he shouted, surprising even himself with the depth of his voice, a fierce reclaiming of his own power. He took a step forward, eyes blazing, willing to risk everything. Laura smirked, reveling in his control over the situation. "You think you can save her? You think she's worth it? You really don't know what you're involved in, do you?" "I know you're a monster," he shot back, urgency fueling his words. It was a distraction, a moment to galvanize his resolve. Just then, a sound, a rustle, a gasp caught his attention. The girl was trying to fight back. Her small struggle was an almost heroic attempt against the overwhelming force. He couldn't stand by. Ignoring the burning sensation in his lungs, he charged into the fray. Fear clawed at him as he pushed past the boxes, shoving aside anything that slowed him. Each step felt electric, vibrated with the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He could feel the shadows closing in, each step like a countdown to disaster. "Stop him!" Laura screamed, but it was too late. Thomas was already lunging toward the girl, their fingers just inches apart. The moment stretched like an elastic band ready to snap. He felt hope swell in his heart, the rush of possibility as his fingertips grazed her wrist. But just as quickly darkness surged back, a wall of bodies blocking his every move. "No!" he roared, his voice a deep howl of desperation. Then, with a terrifying crack, darkness thrummed, and the lights flickered before plunging them into complete blackness. His world erupted into a labyrinth of sounds and voices, but he held on to one thought, the girl. "Thomas!" she cried out again, this time muffled, as if the walls themselves were clutching her in a skin-of-the-screen grasp. He had to find her. He stumbled blindly, his heart pounding in a frantic rhythm as he listened. The quiet whispers of movement now morphed into something ominous, a rising tide of panic that quickened his pulse. Chaos danced around him, and he felt the overwhelming need to break free from the suffocating grip of desperation. Then a glint caught his eye in the darkness: the file. His lifeline, the reason he was in this nightmare to begin with. He lunged for it blindly, thinking of the risk, the girl, what Laura would do when she got her hands on it. He grasped it tightly, and in that instant, the external noise fell away, leaving only the feel of the paper against his palm, grounding him amid the storm. But something was wrong. The darkness swirled around in a claustrophobic embrace, filled with shadows and a suffocating aura of impending doom. "Help!" he shouted, hope slipping through his fingers. A silhouette loomed ahead. Was it Laura? Or the girl? He couldn't tell. All he knew was that the clock was ticking, and he needed to make a choice. Behind him, footsteps echoed, faster and more furious than before, fueled by ruthless intent. The air grew electric with danger, a crescendo of threat bursting the tension apart, and as he squared his shoulders, bracing for what came next, his heart thundered. Would he save her? Or would he put the file and the truth about everything into the wrong hands? The weight of blame hung heavy in the air, and the feeling gnawed at him cruelly. Time was running out. He would have to risk it all, but what if the truth he held could bring more destruction than salvation? Thomas's heart raced in that suffocating darkness. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him as he grappled with the file clenched in his fist. He could no longer afford to ponder over what pitfalls lay ahead. It was time for action. "Thomas! Over here!" The girl's voice pierced through the overwhelming silence. It was faint, but it was enough to ignite a spark of determination in him. He felt for her in the dark, following the sound, each step echoing with urgency and desperation. He pushed through the shadows, feeling his way with trembling hands. Finally, his fingers brushed against a small figure. Relief surged through him. He grasped her wrist, pulling her close. "I've got you." But just then, a twisted cackle erupted around them. "You're too late." Laura's voice taunted, layered with wicked glee. "Time's up, Thomas." Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, flooding the room with harsh brightness. Thomas squeezed the girl's hand tight, his breath catching in his throat as he realized the situation was worse than he had thought. The board members surrounded them, blocking any chance of escape, a ring of betrayal closing in, faces obscured by fear and cruelty. "You think you can take what's ours?" Laura sneered, hands on her hips, an air of condescension radiating off her. "This isn't just about you anymore. You've affected all of us." Thomas held the file protectively against his chest. It was everything, the reason he had fought through the shadows, the key to revealing the monster lurking within his organization. "You don't understand. You can't keep doing this." He felt the fire burning in his chest, anger laced with fear, a desperate plea for truth. The girl, standing beside him, trembled. "You have to listen to him," she interjected, her voice stronger than he expected. "This isn't just about the company. People are getting hurt." Laura laughed again, a chilling sound that ricocheted off the walls. "What do you know about it, little girl? You're just a pawn in this game." "No!" Thomas shouted fiercely. "She's not a pawn. She's more powerful than you'll ever know. This isn't a game, it's someone's life, and it could be mine if I let you win." He looked around at the faces of the board, gauging their reactions, hoping to find a glimmer of support. Flickers of uncertainty crossed some of them. Could they really let their greed dictate their actions? "Thomas, stop this madness!" Eric's voice trembled. "We can talk things out." "Talk?" Laura snapped, infuriated. "You want to talk? There's nothing left to discuss. It's too late for that." The tension in the room electrified as Thomas could feel the weight settling beneath his feet. This was his moment, the tipping point where he could take control back from the shadows that had haunted his life for so long. With a deep breath, Thomas stepped forward, revealing the file. "You want the truth?" He opened it wide, exposing the damning account of deals, betrayals, and dark manipulations. "Here it is. This is everything you've hidden behind corporate smiles and handshakes. These lies and threats are coming to light." Around him, gasps echoed. Shock rippled through the members, eyes darting from the documents to Thomas. This was his revelation, their admission of guilt laid bare. "But how did you?" Laura started, her bravado slipping as panic crowded into her features. "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that it will come out," Thomas exclaimed, resolute. He felt the presence of the girl beside him, her faith in him strengthening his resolve. "And you'll face the consequences. This isn't just about profit anymore, it's about people, everyone who trusted you." Suddenly, the air shifted, and Laura's veneer of calm shattered. "You don't know what you're doing," she yelled, voice trembling with rage. He took a steadying breath, holding the girl's gaze. They had forged this truth together. "You're right. I don't know. But I'm willing to fight for those I care about. That's more than I can say for you." And just like that, the shadows behind Laura receded. The board members glanced at one another. Recognition dawning, fear mingled with realization. A cowardice had started to dissolve, and the walls of deception that had haunted him were beginning to crack. As the moment hung delicately, Thomas could see the path unraveling toward freedom, a choice for each of them to step into the light or remain in the shadows. "Let us end this, once and for all," he declared, but it was not for his sake alone, it was for every voice stifled beneath the weight of corruption. Laura's expression twisted with fury. "You'll regret this," she hissed, taking a step back, knowing the balance had shifted. But instead of being fueled by fear, Thomas felt the tides turning within him. The world around him glimmered with potential, a flickering light amidst the shadows. As he took another breath, steady and grounded, he realized he would face the consequences of his actions with this girl beside him, their alliance solid and true. He had been given a gift on his birthday, a gift of courage wrapped in a child's heartfelt wisdom. "What now?" the girl whispered, squeezing his arm. Thomas smiled at her. "Now, we follow the light." And together, they stepped into a world of possibility, ready to reveal the truth and reclaim their lives. With each stride, he felt the shadows receding, and for the first time in years, Thomas Albright faced tomorrow with hope, open to the plains of the future. As the applause melted away from the room, echoing around the cityscape, a sense of purpose shone in his chest. They were here to fight, not just for the company, but for every life that had ever been silenced by the threats and the shadows. It was a new dawn. And they were just getting started now. Let us not forget what matters most. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of the amazing stories unfolding here. Smash that like button, feed the algorithm, and let your voice be heard. Flood the comments section. We want to hear your reactions and theories about Thomas and the girl's adventure. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who you know need to see this incredible conclusion. Your support makes all the difference. This is the moment to show it.